Most of the apologies that I've gotten in my life kind of fall into three categories. The first being like, I'm sorry, okay, yeah, that was like wrong. Okay, are you happy? Kind of apologies. The second being these kind of like, okay, well, I'm sorry that you feel that way. Yeah, that sucks that you meant like, yeah, I'm sorry that you felt upset about what I said. And the third type of apology being like, oh yeah, I'm so sorry. No, that was really awful of me and I feel so bad about what I did. Let's just like move on. I mean, it's just, can we move on? Because I feel so bad. And none of these are normal apology. And I don't think people are assholes. I think it's just that if you never have a proper apology modeled for you, you don't really know how to do it. So in this video, I'm going to explain first what is the purpose of an apology, and then I'm going to tell you my 5 steps to a normal apology, because I have a lot of practice apologizing for things. Welcome to Raise Your Voice. My name is Rita. By the way, if you actually find this video useful, please give me a thumbs up. And if you want to see more videos like that, please subscribe to my channel. Now let's get into what is the purpose of an apology. This may seem trivial, but I think a lot of us kind of feel that the purpose of an apology is you messed up, so you have to get the other person to stop being sad or mad. And that is a difficult place to come from to make an effective apology. So I wanted to give you a more uplifting, like purposeful reframing of what an apology is. And so there's like 2 components to the apology, right? You've done something wrong. In most cases, both people have kind of done something wrong, but you have done your part in something, and there have been 2 consequences to that. The first is that the other person's like well-being was affected negatively, and the second is the quality of your relationship with that person was affected negatively. So the purpose of your apology is also twofold then, right? First, it is to show the other person that you care about their well-being and help them feel better. And second, it is to show the other person that you care about the relationship you have to them and that you want to improve it, right? So it's kind of like you want to take steps to recognize the harm you've done, and you want to show the person that you care not just about them, but about continuing to have a good relationship with them. That in mind, let's go through my 5 apology steps. The first step is give yourself a break. And I know at this point you're like, oh, yeah, like self-kindness, yeah, I get it. But this isn't just about you. This is like about the quality of your apology. The reality of life is that all humans make mistakes all the time, and making mistakes feels shitty, because it makes you feel like you're a bad person, like you don't have control over yourself, like, you're not just being correct, maybe even that you don't deserve love or whatever. So whenever you've done something wrong, by the time you realize you should apologize, you also feel bad for having, been a bad person. And that is a place from which it's very difficult to make a good apology, because at least to some extent your apology then becomes about you and how bad you're feeling. And again, that's not because you're a bad person, but it is hard to put somebody's feelings in the front and center when you yourself are feeling, unlovable, shitty, whatever. So before you go into making the apology, give yourself like whatever the moment or the hour that you need to calm down and get to a place where you feel stable, like you still deserve love and you're still a good person even if you have made a quite serious mistake, and where you're ready to actually make the apology about the other person, because that is really needed for the effective apology. So that's step 1, is to give yourself a break and put yourself in a place where you feel kind of grounded and ready to make the apology about them. Step 2 is to acknowledge your wrongdoing and acknowledge that you're taking responsibility, right? So this is like the way you have to start any effective apology, is you want to communicate to the person that you are ready to fix the situation, to correct the error that you've made, right? this could be as simple like, oh, I'm sorry, that was my bad. I shouldn't have done that. That is very simple. Or it can be something like, oh, I know we've been having this really big fight for a long time, and I really want to take responsibility for everything that I have done that has contributed to making you feel bad, and I just really wanted to apologize and to take that responsibility and to discuss this with you, right? So there's a wide spectrum of how many words you need to actually accomplish this, but the main thing is the gesture that you are opening the apology and that you are wanting to be on the same page as the other person. This is very difficult for most people, again, because acknowledging that you did something wrong feels like you must acknowledge that you're a bad person, but those are not the same thing. It's normal to have done wrong, bad things, hurting your loved ones, whatever. That's apparently just part of being a human being none of us can escape from. So that's fine. So just put that aside and try to acknowledge that you did something wrong. And the reason that this is so important is if we go back to our what is the reason for the apology, is that you did something that only hurt a person but also hurt their relationship to you, which compromises their feeling of safety and trust in you, right? So even in like a really minor case where you made some sort of playful joke about how ugly your friend's sweater is, like, you know, it was like their grandpa's sweater, but it's like their favorite sweater they just bought. Obviously, that's not a huge deal and it's not going to cause a permanent rift in your relationship, but it does make the person feel unsafe to some extent, and it makes that person feel like you don't care about them to some extent. So you want to be able to like show them that you are a safe person, remind them that you do care about their feelings, and the first step to do that is to acknowledge and take responsibility. Okay, so you've acknowledged and taken responsibility. The next step is to empathize with them and to validate their feelings. So as I already said, when you're apologizing, that means you did something wrong, and usually that means it made somebody else feel bad. Maybe it made them feel sad, hurt, like unloved, angry, frustrated, unimportant, whatever. There's a wide variety of negative feelings you can cause to somebody, not even on purpose. But since they're feeling that, and again, you want to show that you are friends and you have this shared bond with you, you want to show them that you understand their feelings and you care about them. Again, this can be as simple as like, oh, yeah, I totally understand that what I said must have made you feel really bad. Or it can be as complicated, you know, as like a long drawn out description of all of the ways in which you made them suffer. My hack here, personally, is that when I'm doing this feelings validation discussion, I like to kind of separate these out into two separate themes. One is kind of like direct and indirect. So the direct feelings is like, you know, if my like husband is feeling a bit sick and then I like snap at him for like asking me to like bring him like a 10th cup of tea, directly that must have just made him feel like, you know, a bit hurt and sad. So, you know, I would love to take responsibility. I'm like, you know, I really shouldn't like raise my voice at you when you're feeling sick, and obviously that must have made you feel really sad and tragic because all you want is some tea. But then there's also many times an indirect component where a person has a really strong emotional reaction, which is not really merited by the event, but it's still something they're really experiencing very strongly. And so you have to also take that into account. So in my tea example, you know, maybe I just was like, ugh, another teacup, you know? So it wasn't really that I did something wrong, but let's say hypothetically my husband is really sick and then that makes him feel like super sad because it gives him this like emotional trigger for all the times, like, I don't know, his mom like never cared when he was sick, something like this, right? So in this case, I raised my voice just a bit. I'm like really sorry for doing that because that must have just felt like shitty. But you also want to say like, yeah, and I know you're really sensitive to these kinds of events, so I totally understand if you're feeling really sorry. And I completely understand that these types of like situations make you feel really strongly. And that's totally makes sense to me. So while you don't need to take responsibility for what is kind of this like overreaction or this inappropriate level of reaction, you can still validate it and empathize with it, right? So if you said, if you just made a comment about your friend's ugly sweater and then she like cried and locked herself in the bathroom, I mean, that can't be your responsibility for making a small joke, but it's still your responsibility because she's your friend and her feelings should be important. So you don't have to take responsibility for her freaking out, but you still have to show that you care and that you understand that, all of us human beings have emotional triggers. So some things are just objectively not a big deal, but can be a really big deal to somebody. And it's not wrong, it's not messed up, whatever. That's just, again, part of being a human being. So that's my like indirect and direct feelings validation hack, where again, you just want to say, yeah, I know you're feeling bad. Totally understand that. That's really valid. So now you've done that. And then the next step is going to be to explain yourself. Okay, so sometimes people get really upset if you try to explain yourself after you've hurt their feelings because it sounds like you're making excuses for yourself, etc. But I think explaining your side of the situation is a really important part of any apology because it, again, helps you rebuild trust with the other person. So to make sure that it doesn't sound like you're just making excuses, just say, I don't want to try to excuse what I did, and I know what I did was wrong, but I'd really like to explain to you how I felt or why I did that. And then they can either say yes or no. Sometimes they're like, I don't care, like, I don't want to talk about like your perspective right now, and that's fine. Or they're maybe like, yeah, fine, okay, what? Like, why? Why would you do this? Why would you make fun of my sweater? So let the person decide if they want that or not. You can't force it on them. But if they do want it, I think it can be really nice to explain why you did what you did, because I guess like the vast majority of human beings are not monsters, but we still do quite shitty things. So it's nice to just be able to explain what happened. And again, here I like to group my explanations into two categories. The first is like accident. So kind of like an emotional accident. So, if you come home really tired from work and then your sister's like asking you for a favor and you snap at her, that's just an emotional accident, right? You shouldn't snap at her. She's just trying to get some help and you like really care about her and usually you help her. It's just you were feeling overwhelmed. So I just like to say, yeah, this was just an accident, like, of course I shouldn't have done that. Here's what were the things that clouded my judgment that led me to having this accident, right? So that this is reassuring to somebody because it reminds them that like actually you share the value of not hurting them and you're on the same page, and really that there was some sort of mitigating circumstance that led to you doing this and that you see it as a problem. And then the other category of explanations is like an error, right? And this means that you actually didn't understand something, or like the way that you were seeing things was not aligned with the way you should be seeing things. So in my example with your joking about your friend's sweater, maybe like for your friend, it's just really important that nobody ever jokes about her clothes ever because she's really self-conscious about fashion and her looks. And that is something that you just didn't understand and you didn't know. So it wasn't like, oh, you had an accident where you knew it was wrong, but you just accidentally did it. It was more like, oh, for most people, joking about outfits is really not that big of a deal. So I didn't know. Obviously, don't tell her like, for most people, it's not a big deal. You can just say, I really didn't know that this was a value to you. In my family, we joke about clothes all the time, so I just didn't know. But now I understand that. So again, you want to explain why you did the thing that hurt them, like explain your reasoning if they want to, and you want to explain it either like it was an accident and here's why it happened, or it was an error as in I understood something wrong, here's why I had that understanding, and you want to finish by saying now I understand that I need to change my view on that. So in either case, you're kind of like not really justifying your actions, but just providing that person a way to comprehend your actions. And the reason this is really helpful is, again, if you've done something wrong, the other person sees you as a bit unsafe. and helping them understand your logic helps them feel more safe and secure. And then my last step in the apology after you explain yourself, and this is a really important step that a lot of people don't seem to get, is you have to make amends, right? If you've done something wrong, even if you had a fight and you both did something wrong, you always have some responsibility. So you have to do more than just apologize. You have to show that you want to help the other person regain their well-being, and you want to help repair your relationship. So on a minor case with this friend of yours who is crying because of the sweater, after you acknowledge and take responsibility, you validate her feelings, you explain that you made a mistake, now you want to make amends. And in this case, it would be like, I really promise that in the future I'm going to change the way I act, and I guarantee that I'm not going to make insensitive jokes like this ever again. So you're promising to make a change. And, let me buy you a hot chocolate or something because I feel so bad, right? So you're just offering to literally do something to cheer her up, and it's kind of proportional to the scale. She's crying, so you give her some hot cocoa, and you're just also promising to make a change. So this makes the person feel like, hey, it was a safe situation because this person cares about my well-being. It's not just okay, yeah, I've explained myself. Are you done crying yet? It's more let me help you feel better. And in a more serious case, if, you did something really hurtful, you lied to somebody and it really hurts them, you can say I understand that it's going to take you a really long time to trust me after this, but I want to help rebuild that trust. What is it that I can do that would make you feel like you can trust me again? And can I, for example, just take you out for a coffee and then we talk about this? So again, you don't have to take the full burden of repairing the entire relationship onto yourself, but you want to show that you're understand that it's a process to get back to where you were in the relationship before the mistake happened, and then you're willing to put in the effort, and then you're willing to take the initiative, right? So again, there's a broad range of really how much amends you need to make, but without this step of the amends, the apology isn't really complete, because the person is, otherwise the person, they felt bad, and okay, they know you're sorry and they know you didn't mean it, but they're just there alone feeling bad. So you gotta help them pick themselves up from where they were. Okay, so to summarize, let me get my card. So your 5 steps are to give yourself a break and make sure you can make the apology about the other person, to acknowledge your wrongdoing and take responsibility, to empathize with their feelings and validate how they feel to show that you are on the same page as them, to explain your side of the story, to kind of whether you made a mistake or whether you had an error in your thinking, to that it's logical what happened to them. And finally, you want to make amends, which is that you want to do something proportional to the mistake you've made to repair the harm that you've caused to them and to your relationship. I know this sounds very involved and very complex, but I think that if you just practice a few times, you really get the hang of it. And as I said, for minor things, a few words is all it takes. It's oh, I'm sorry, that was my bad. Obviously, what I said made you feel shitty. I really didn't think about that because in my family we make jokes like that all the time. I promise I'm not going to make jokes like that again. Let me buy you a cookie to cheer you up. That takes 15 seconds, and it's a proper apology like a normal person. Anyway, thank you very much for watching this video. And again, if you actually find it useful, please give me a thumbs up. Bye!